Metal Gear as a movie should not work. I want it to work. Clearly, they're going to make it. I don't think that they should. And it's not just Metal Gear, but there are a lot of video game movies that just shouldn't be made. The real charm of Metal Gear, and this is coming from a guy who plays a lot of video games, the real charm of Metal Gear has always been in the intricate storytelling, the way that Solid Snake or Raiden or Big Boss doesn't know the full story. And as the player, as you play the game, you uncover the story in a very jumbled mess of orders in a very convoluted way. But at the end of it all, after all the major reveals, after all the smoke is cleared, then fully do you say you understand the story and you appreciate that story. It's in playing that game. Yes, the tactical part of the game is phenomenal. Sneaking around, the ridiculous boss fights with the 20-minute death monologues, the hour-and-a-half cutscene for Metal Gear Solid 4. All brilliant, all well done. Would not translate well to a movie because they really rely on player input. Obviously, with the exception of the long cutscene, there you just kind of sit and watch. But think of the Psycho Mantis fight. Why was that fight so incredible? It was incredible because the game broke the fourth wall, because you had to switch the controller from port 1 to port 2 on your PlayStation. Think of the big twist at the end of Metal Gear Solid 2 when you find out what that whole game was about and what Big Shell really was. Think of the twist in Metal Gear Solid 5 when you think you know who you are and everything gets turned on its head at the very, very end of the game. All brilliantly done. Hideo Kojima is a brilliant game designer, a brilliant storyteller, but it's done in the medium of a video game. It's you making those connections with your actions. It's you making those connections with the other players. This would not translate well into a movie. The best we could hope for in a movie, regardless of the actor, regardless of anything about it, the budget, any of it, the best we could hope for is a retelling of any of the existing Metal Gear games in movie form. And I'm talking scene by scene, I'm talking shot by shot because they're so well done. I think you really need to have that experience to best understand it. When you start adding in characters in a video game setting, in a real world setting, when you take away the video game tropes and the nonsensical nature, I guess is probably the best word here, the nonsensical nature of a video game, and you try to put those characters in the real world, it doesn't work. Think of a game like not Metal Gear, we're talking about Metal Gear, Mortal Kombat. Think of a game like Mortal Kombat. Think of a game like Street Fighter. Both perfect examples. Very nonsensical fighting games, but fun. When you're playing with them, you're invested. Obviously, you want to win. You get a little snippet of dialogue between the character you're playing with and the character that you have beaten or lose to. And then at the end, you're crowned the champion and the game is over. Then think of what they did, they being Hollywood, with Metal Gear, I keep saying Metal Gear, with Street Fighter. Think of the nonsensical nature of that movie when you try to frame it and say, okay, well, there really is an army and there's these superheroes like Guile suddenly breaks out, or Chun-Li or Zangief, who suddenly rise above all the other standard fodder characters. Think of a movie like Mortal Kombat and how bad that was, and how you're trying to take a tournament of these two gods fighting each other, and more than two gods, but this tournament of gods, and they choose champions to fight for them. Think of how that translated into a movie. It didn't. And yes, you have all the tools to make the great special effects. I'm sure you could make a phenomenal looking Metal Gear Rex, or any of the Metal Gears, honestly. I would love to see a acted out scene of Snake and Liquid fist fighting, or driving through the tunnels with a 50 cal mowing people down. But the reality is those are video game-esque moments, and they don't translate well into the real world. The sniper wolf fight, for example, if you shot a person with a sniper bullet, they would just die, it would be over. Obviously, part of that fight, the charm of that fight, is laying out in the field, watching where she goes from cover to cover, taking her out, that sort of thing. You would lose all that. And that's, to me, why I am incredibly against a Metal Gear movie, or most video game movies. They just don't typically do well. Assassin's Creed, Mad Max, the aforementioned Street Fighter, the aforementioned Mortal Kombat, even Monster Hunter coming up doesn't look to be that great. And even games like Resident Evil, which really have a lot of great content to be, to make a movie out of, even those movies aren't that great. There's just a real disconnect between what video game mechanics and play is versus what Hollywood kind of expects. So I am violently against this idea. I think Metal Gear relies solely on player control, player choice, and in the understanding and breaking down of a story being told to you in a completely jumbled mess. Now, maybe that's the only thing you could translate well into a movie, but the first two you definitely couldn't. So I'm against it. If it comes out, I'll obviously do a review on it and tell you guys my thoughts on it. But the little bit I know of how Hollywood butchers some of my favorite video games ever, I think this is a really, really bad idea. And I would advise against it because you're not going to win a lot of fans. And the fans that are already invested in Metal Gear are probably like me and hate this idea before it even started. With that, I'm closing out this video. Leave your comments below. Let me know your thoughts on the upcoming potential Metal Gear Solid movie. What would you like to see? Do you want a reenactment from one of the games? Do you want an original story with just random characters or something in between? Thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.